Hello, guys, and welcome back. We got week 7 of the NFL. Hope everyone's doing well. It's like we don't have anyone in here yet, but definitely we'll get some people in here. So let's go ahead and hop into week 7. Glad to be back again. All right, for week 7, we got 6 teams that are facing buys this week. I know you can't see behind my camera there, but the teams we've got this week, we've got the Bengals, Texans, Titans, Jets, Cowboys, and the Panthers all on bye. So definitely a very tricky week in terms of fantasy, but also kind of a tricky week to watch in football because I definitely love watching some of these teams play on a week in, week out basis. Uh, and I wouldn't be talking about the Panthers. But Bengals obviously are starting to turn the corner. I'm hoping the rest will make sure that Joe Burrow is fully healthy, but he's looked pretty good the last few games. With the Texans, they've been playing better. I know they dropped that game to Atlanta and didn't look that great last week, but I really think moving forward, you're seeing a lot out of CJ Stroud. This team's starting to gel together. It gives them a chance to kind of rest up and then come into week 8 with a full head of steam. Tennessee, again, this is a team that's just going to continue to play teams tough this year, and I expect them taking a few more games off teams that maybe we don't expect. They'll play everyone in the division tough. They're probably the third best team in this division right now behind Jacksonville and Houston. But they're definitely better than Indianapolis, and they're going to be as long as AR is out for the season. So with the Jets, again, another team that's playing people tough. Talk rumors keep coming up that they're going to be able to go and Rodgers is going to come back. I really hope that isn't the case. Not because I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers. I'm definitely a big fan of his. But the big reason is because uh, I don't want to see him rush back. I feel like we are owed. I know that sounds kind of bad, but we are owed a good season with Aaron Rodgers and this Jets football team. Whether you're a Pats fan or a Bills fan or a Dolphins fan, I definitely would like to see the Jets be relevant. And if you're going to beat a team in the league, beat them at their best. Right now, the Jets are not at their best. They're missing that key component. And yes, Zach Wilson is playing better, but there's a big drop off between Aaron Rodgers and what we're getting in terms of production from Zach Wilson. So definitely would like to see them take a step forward. I just don't want to see Rodgers rush back, get hurt potentially, and then where are we left after that? So Cowboys, they were able to steal that win over the Chargers there, and there's been a lot of talk. Obviously, Micah Parsons on his own podcast calling out Stephen A. Smith, saying that we want them to keep the same energy when we're talking about the Eagles that we are the Cowboys. And I definitely feel Dak gets a lot of grief, a lot of flack for the struggles of the Cowboys ever since he broke his ankle horrifically there against the Giants a few years back. We just have seen a different Dak Prescott. He hasn't been airing the ball. He hasn't been you really taking off when plays break down and getting that first down. He's been more tentative with how he plays. And I just, another piece of it is I don't think he's fully to blame. Everyone wants to easily just put all of this on him. Yeah, he's going to make some bad decisions. But there's a lot of teams in this league that, listen, if the Cowboys decide, hey, we don't want Dak as our quarterback anymore, there's teams that are going to pick him up. I know the team we just talked about, the Jets, if they had a chance to have Dak on their team, they'd gladly take him. Um, and to be honest, I'm looking at a few of the teams here. Titans, definitely Carolina, the Jets. Those are all three teams right there that would definitely take Dak Prescott if he was available. And I know Carolina's got Bryce Young, but again, he's a rookie. Dak Prescott right now is definitely a good quarterback in the NFL. He's just, I honestly think it's a Mike McCarthy problem. That's just my opinion. I really like to see this team without him there. I would have liked to see this team without him there last year and with Kellen Moore there, but we didn't get that opportunity. They let Kellen Moore walk. So now we've got to deal with the fallout from that. In Carolina, oh man, this is the only winless team in the NFL, and I just don't know whether they're actually going to get one this year. This team does not look good. They've got some pieces on defense. I know they've talked about possibly trading for a wide receiver one, but Adam Thielen's playing well enough for them right now. It doesn't seem that's their problem. They have a lot of holes on this team, and especially on defense. But I think other than Conwu on the line, like they've got issues there, and they definitely need to address that. Bryce Young, he's a rookie. We've got to give him time to develop. Obviously, he hasn't developed the same way Stroud has, and I know there's a lot of comparisons with that because they went 1-2 in the draft. But give the guy a break, like let's give him a break and see exactly what he's going to learn this season, how he's going to progress, and what he can do within this system. I trust the coach too, so I want to see exactly what they're able to do with him, how he's able to progress. Definitely keep an eye on Mingo too, as things start to change here in Carolina. I think he's going to have an opportunity to be able to step up. All right, let's jump into things real quick. We got Raiders and Bears. So this will be the first game we'll talk about now. Boys, I think the cops are coming for me again. So now Fields is not going to be playing this week. Half the Bears' offensive line is questionable to play. I expect them to try to run the ball a lot. I actually picked up Deonta Foreman in one of my leagues just because I expect a heavy dose of the run game. Obviously, Khalil Herbert's out. Roshan Johnson, I believe, is questionable. I'm not positive on that. I saw his name. I just can't remember exactly what it was. But I expect a lot more of Deonta Foreman today, especially with Roshan Johnson kind of banged up. So um, it would be silly for Chicago to win this game. Like for anyone that's going to pick that, I don't see that happening. Now listen, from previous streams, I am not a Vegas Raiders fan. I'm just not. And let me just take a step back on that. It's not that I'm not a Vegas Raiders fan. It's that I'm not a Josh McDaniels fan. I don't have a lot of faith in him. Now they come out this week. They're talking about, oh, we're not going to trade Devontae Adams, regardless of teams calling and stuff like that. I don't know. I think the ship is going down. McDaniels is trying to let everyone know it's okay, but it's definitely not. I would be really disappointed if he's still the coach of this team next year. I just think this team does have talent on its roster. You need to get a coach in here that is actually smart, that's going to be able to capitalize on that. What we've seen from the offense, and listen, McDaniels is an offensive minded guy. That's where he, gained his chops in New England under Belichick, was being the offensive guy. And I'm just looking at this team this year in terms of what they've done for production. They're terrible. They really are terrible. It's just I don't know. I know they're riding the 2-game winning streak with wins over Green Bay, New England, but for me, it really pisses me off because I look at that and I'm just like, you know what? They didn't play particularly well. It's just that Green Bay did not play good at all, and New England just did enough to lose that game. And this New England team is not the New England team we've been seeing in years past. So um, I look pretty silly because I picked Vegas to win 0 games this year, and I understand that. I'll bear that cross, but I think I just let my distaste with McDaniels get the best of me, and didn't really look at the matchups and was just like, hey, listen, I'm going to bury this team. And I really honestly, looking at the team at the beginning of the year, Garoppolo was questionable. They had issues with his injury and stuff, and for me, I really didn't see this team taking a step forward under this regime. I just don't. Um, but let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo for a second. He's played real poor this year. 7 touchdowns, 8 picks. It just it's frustrating to see when you have someone on your team like Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. I mean, this team traded away Waller in the offseason. I get that piece, but when you have Devontae Adams, like, you just need to put the ball in his hands. You have to feed him the ball consistently, and this team chooses not to do that. They're running the ball pretty well. I mean, I'm looking at it. They're getting better. They're not as good as I would like them to be. I look at Jacobs right now, his last 3 games: 58 yards, 69 yards, 77 yards. He is slowly improving, but I just don't see them improving much against this Chicago team. This Chicago team is pretty good against the run. They're pretty stout. Where they give up yards is through the air. So we're going to be getting a dose of Aiden O'Connell or Brian Hoyer. I'm not sure they've decided on that yet, but we should find out. But I just expect them to be throwing to Adams and Myers all day. Like I wonder when eventually the wheels are going to fall off this bus, because if you continue to stop using, uh, continue to neglect using these guys, you don't have a chance to win. I just, for me, this offense should be much better than they are, and it's super disappointing. And I feel bad for guys like Max Crosby, who I know on every play give their all, and what they've been through, and even Devontae, like people are giving him a hard time now for leaving Green Bay. It's like, listen, he wasn't going to sit there and watch Aaron Rodgers sit on his hands. He had to go out and get his money, and this team had Derek Carr. They benched Derek Carr last year. I don't think they should have done that, but they chose to. And now it is, this is what we have. So I have Vegas winning this game 24-13. I just think with Chicago using a new quarterback, it's just going to be really rough for them this game. In terms of fantasy outlooks, listen, Jacob's still getting opportunities. You have to play him. You don't know if it could break out like last year, where he quietly led the NFL in rushing. But guys, like if you have him on your roster, you're playing him. You definitely do, because most people in most leagues, unless you went 3-4 running backs right out of the gates, you don't have better running backs than him on your roster right now. So Devontae, listen, I've got him going big this week. I'm hoping they can feed him the ball. That's another thing. Like, if you're not giving this guy 12 to 15 targets a game, what are you doing? What are you doing? It just, for me, it's frustrating to see. So with Jacoby Myers, listen, you may have to stream him. Like I mentioned before at the beginning of the stream, six teams on bye this week, and there's some big names in terms of players throughout those six teams. You're likely going to have to stream Myers this week, and it may not be your choice to, but sometimes you got to do things you don't want to in fantasy. It's unfortunate. With DJ Moore, listen, I want to see how this team does without Justin Fields first before I'm buying into the Moore hype. I know I'm starting Deonta Foreman. I get that piece of it. Some of you may have to do that, and especially in more competitive leagues. You may end up being forced to start DJ Moore. I'm not the guy that's doing it. I don't trust it this week. I think they're going to try to force balls into his hands, and I think Vegas is going to capitalize on that. So all right, let's move forward here. Next game that we got the Browns at Indy, and Cleveland's riding pretty high after knocking off undefeated San Francisco. Watson, I found out, is active for this game, so I definitely expect. And listen, anyone trying to call out and question whether this guy can play through injury and stuff like that, how tough he is. Listen, you're letting the off the field issues cloud your judgment in terms of bringing this guy down. This guy's an exceptional football player. He's played hurt before. He couldn't play through that. And listen, if you feel like something's wrong, sometimes you can't go. That's the way it was last week. He showed up in warmups, didn't like what he saw. They had to sit him down. And listen, he wants to be out there. He wants to be helping his team. I think it's great they were able to get a win against a great team. I don't think it was necessary to risk him last week, and it turns out they were right. So anyone trying to doubt Deshaun Watson and the Browns for making that decision, check yourself a bit. With this game, listen, Indy's defense is not great. They're giving up a lot on the ground and through the air. This defense is just, they've got holes throughout the whole thing. It's like a wet paper. It's like a plastic bag filled with water, and you punch 1,000 holes in it. They're leaking from everywhere. I expect Cleveland to run the ball a lot with Ford and Hunt. Hunt is going to be active as well. And I expect them to be able to control the clock. That's what Cleveland does very well. They run the ball well, they milk the clock, and they play exceptional defense. And their defense is just going to suffocate this Colts team. Listen, Gardner Minshew, I'm all about Minshew mania, but it's just this Cleveland defense is going to eat him up. Moss and Taylor are not going to have much room to run this game. And I feel bad for saying that, because I think some people are still going to start Jonathan Taylor or Zach Moss. Do that only if you have to. With AR hitting IR, listen, the Colts' dreams this season are definitely over. They're not getting it done this year. So I'm sorry to break hearts doing that, but that's exactly what they're going through. They need to get better in their secondary and at wide receiver. This team should start looking towards the draft. And what I would really like to see in Indy next year as a Colts fan is for them to be able to bring in Marvin Harrison Jr. That would be an awesome completion of the cycle. Listen, you saw Pittsburgh do it with Joey Porter and Joey Porter Jr. Marvin Harrison was amazing to watch for a number of years. I think his son is an absolute specimen. He could be very good as well. And he's much bigger than his dad was. So I'd really like to see him come in and be able to wear the horseshoe. In terms of a game outlook, I have Cleveland winning this one 24-10. Fantasy outlooks, listen, Amari Cooper, you're definitely going to play him if Deshaun's playing, right? Deshaun Watson, I'd play him too. I think he could have a big game. I don't expect him to have like ridiculous stats, but this Indy defense does give up a lot of yards. They give up a lot of plays. I would definitely have Deshaun Watson in my lineup unless I had a better option. Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt. Listen, Ford gets more opportunities, but Hunt played well last week. I think in some leagues due to the buys, and listen, we're not used to a 16 bye week, right? Like that's very difficult to get through. I think you may be in a position where you have to start one of them. Michael Pittman, listen, it pains me to play this guy. This guy is the king of the one catch for 7 yards multiplied by 10. It, I don't think he's that good of a receiver. I just think he's the biggest guy on this Colts offense, and they don't really have much else they can go to. Josh Downs, listen, he could be sneaky good in this matchup. I expect Cleveland to take Michael Pittman out of the picture. Josh Downs working out of the slot, it could be really good, and we could see some good production out of him. Listen, JT and Zach Moss, I know I mentioned this before, but oh, I know Jonathan Taylor. Like I was just on here last week talking about him saying like if you drafted him, you're playing him, and I get that, but it does not feel good playing either one of these guys this week. It's an ugly play for both of them in fantasy this week. They could surprise, but I don't want to be the one to do it. All right, next game we've got Bills at New England. So listen, it doesn't get any easier for Bill Belichick in New England this year. It's in fact, it's probably going to get worse. The best hope for this team really is just tanking, getting a top 5 pick. Maybe Caleb Williams, though he didn't look too sharp this weekend against Utah. Maybe they go Bo Nix. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to end up doing, but they're definitely going to have a top 10 pick next year because this team does not have enough to be able to beat enough teams to stay out of the top 10. Listen, if knowing Belichick and what he's done in the past few years, unless something changes in terms of GM and control for him for the team, he's going to take that first round pick. And if there's not a guy that he's absolutely in love with there, he's going to fold it back into other picks. We've seen it every single year. If a guy's not there that they absolutely love, they trade back. And we've seen some of the disasters that has caused on this team. If he's still the GM and he's still in charge of the draft, we could see something else like that. I'm a Belichick believer still. Listen, there's only so much he can do. He can coach, he can scout the guys. He's making good picks in terms of the draft picks. I know people are faulting him for that, but these guys also are getting injured. They need to go and produce too. So maybe they can bring someone else in to light a spark in terms of personnel, something like that. I wouldn't mind seeing that, but listen, with this game, listen, Buffalo's going to look to stick it to New England. They smell blood in the water. They know what's been going on in terms of New England. They know this team is falling apart. I could absolutely see a blowout here. The Bills are getting 7.5. Ramondre Stevenson is active for this game. I expect a lot out of the Bills defense. Now, listen, Ed Oliver, he is out. Obviously, they've had a lot of injuries the last few weeks. It started with Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano. Now they've got Ed Oliver out. It's not looking good. I mean, they are banged up on defense, but Josh Allen is your quarterback. You have a ridiculous offense in terms of Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, and hopefully Kincaid starts to get going. I've been looking foolish for buying into him. Again, I should have just listened to my gut. Rookie tight ends don't get it done. But we are seeing Sam Laporta actually play pretty well this year for Detroit, so I guess that's not fully true. But listen, I expect them to try to involve Diggs early, but Belichick has been good at taking away the primary target. We saw that happen with Tyreek Hill. I could see them taking away Diggs or at least limiting his production in this game, and I think Gabe Davis could have a much better day because of it. So, listen, like I said before, I was wrong about Kincaid. I'm really hoping that he's able to turn it around. Maybe this is the game where we're able to see that happen. Uh, New England has always had pretty good cornerbacks and been able to match up against good receivers. Maybe this gives the Kincaid an option to be able to run out of the slot and make a few catches this game. In terms of game outlook, listen, I know I said it could be a blowout, but I really do think it stays pretty close. I've got 23 Buffalo 23, New England 14. For fantasy outlooks, listen, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, they're a must start every week. If you're not starting them, you should be shaken, or rather shook, shaken, one of those. You need to be both. So Gabe Davis, listen, I already mentioned it before. He could be a sneaky pick this week if Belichick finds a way to limit Diggs. I'm definitely starting him in my lineups. Listen, I'm out on James Cook this week. I've been out on James Cook for a few weeks. I'm not liking what I'm seeing from him. Ramondre, listen, the Bills defense does give up a little bit on the ground. He may be a good play this week, and considering the buys, you may have to. But listen, no other Patriots warrant any sort of fantasy consideration at all. Not at all. All right, let's move on here. We've got Washington at the Giants, and so for this game, listen, the Giants are riding a 4-game losing streak. They shouldn't have lost last week. I know some people want to argue that, but listen, it was pass interference. It was very clear. The refs boned him on it by not calling that in the end zone. It was clear in the replay, like his jersey got dragged, like pulled away by a long, like what was it, 5-6 inches? Come on, guys, you can't see that. It's just, I don't know. Anyone trying to argue that, it really makes me question their common sense. But listen, Washington just cooled off a hot Atlanta team, which I was a little bit surprised by. I expected Atlanta to win that game. Sam Howell had a pretty good game from a statistical standpoint, but I'm just kind of befuddled, like looking through the stats, right, and how they're running this offense. Jahan Dotson gets one target, one? Like, really, dude? And, like, I don't know if you guys saw this week, they had pictures of him actually holding and practicing holds for field goals. Like, this is one of the best playmakers on your team, and they're just, I feel like, not using him. Last year, we saw him light it up. And he did that with Heineke. So why is he not able to get it done this year? It's really confusing to me. And listen, McLaurin is doing exactly what we thought he was going to do. He had 11 targets, right? I think Dotson needs to get more. Between these two guys, you should target them at least 20 times a game. And I know this is the crazy thing is like Bieniemy's running the offense. I just don't get it. Like maybe Sam Howell and him don't have that kind of rapport, and he's got it with McLaurin, and that's why he's going to him. But you need to have more with Jahan Dotson. I need to see more from him because he's more than capable. What did he have? 7 touchdowns last year? He didn't even play the whole season. So listen, they had a tough time last game keeping Sam Howell upright. You know, they gave up the 5 sacks. It could have been worse. He was hit 10 times last game. So you're talking about 15 QB hits during the whole game with the 5 sacks. It's just kind of embarrassing. But I don't think that should be cause for concern this game. Listen, the Giants had 0 sacks and 1 QB hit against Buffalo. It's kind of sad. And in fact, in 6 games this season, the Giants have 5 sacks and 20 quarterback hits. That's just awful. 5 sacks. We've played 6 weeks of football. They have less than 1 sack a game. It's crazy. Like, just to give you a comparison to how bad that is, their offensive line has given up 33 sacks and 56 QB hits. So 6 times as many sacks as their defense has gotten, and 3 times as many QB hits through 6 games. That's just ridiculous. Like, listen, there's no surprise. Like, yes, the playmakers, we sit up here and talk about fantasy, but games are won in the trenches. They're won up front, right? And right now, the Giants are losing on both sides of the ball. Barkley, I know there was a little bit of talk about him, about possibly getting traded. You got Bart Scott on ESPN saying, like, trade him to the Ravens, which, listen, he would definitely upgrade that running back room very quickly if he went to the Ravens. But he's even come out and said, Barkley, saying like, "Listen, I don't want to be traded. I want to stay in New York. This is the week, right? Like this is the week we're going to find out if someone's getting traded or not." It just he's not going to do anything with the Giants this year, so it would benefit him a lot to be able to go there. I think he's going to have some room, definitely some room to run against this Commanders team. They're pretty porous when it comes to run defense. They're not great with it, but in regards to Daniel Jones, I'm not sure if we're going to see him today. I think they said he was a limited participant in practice, so we might see him. But listen, he's their $40 million guy. he's if he's healthy, you got to be able to play him, right? If he's able to go, but it's just a lot of risk, right? Like they're paying him a lot of money. Neck injuries are no joke. So we'll see. In this game, I've got Washington winning 28-12. Terry McLaurin, listen, for in terms of fantasy, Terry McLaurin, I think he's going to have a good game. But if you've got him on your team, you're starting him every week. Saquon, you got to play him every week. Waller, I think you have to start him, right? Like unless you've got a better tight end. But if you're in a league that's competitive, that means there's a good chance like 7 or 8 other tight ends are being started that are better than him. You may get lucky and find one off the waiver wire, but most competitive leagues I'm in, I'm seeing people scoop up those backup tight ends. So if you're in a situation where you have to start him, you might have to. I think he always has the potential to be able to go off, and he's the top target getter for this team. Listen, Sam Howell's going to be a popular streamer this week, especially with the bye weeks, but he's playing against the Giants. I think you got to play him if your starting quarterback is on bye and you need a good waiver wire stream, you got to be able to pick Sam Howell up. And Dotson, listen, I'm out on this guy until I see something more. Like I mentioned, they had him holding field goals in practice. It was just a really bad look. So I'm hoping that's not what we're going to get through with him, but hoping we get a little bit more out of it. So let's take a look here. Next game we've got Falcons and Bucks. So for this game, Atlanta's coming off that loss to the Commanders, what we just talked about, right? Listen, I still don't believe Ritter is that guy. I know some people do. I've gotten some arguments with my friends about it, but listen, Ritter is just not a good NFL quarterback. I've tried to give him time to develop. He just makes terrible throws. And I honestly think Atlanta should be looking to make a play for Kyler Murray. I'd be watching him very closely, and I'd be calling Arizona to find out, like, hey, how healthy is this guy? Get your doctors to check him and get him in there. I think this team in Atlanta becomes a contender and possibly is the best team in the NFC South if Kyler Murray is the quarterback. That's the type of talent they have on this team. So, and I really do think even without Kyler Murray right now, this division is for the taking. New Orleans, we watched how they played against Jacksonville. It's just they're not a great team. They play good defense, but Derek Carr really isn't getting it done there. It's a lot of garbage time stats that I'm seeing from him. Tampa Bay, they're okay. Carolina, again, the only winless team in the NFL. So I really think Atlanta's got a shot to be able to do something in this division. But one thing that's kind of interesting with Atlanta, and they've kind of changed their perspective in terms of how they're playing. They're doing something quite intriguing, and what it is they are starting to throw the ball, which I know is very different from what Arthur Smith has done in the past, right? Like this is a run first team, run second, run third, and run fourth down team. Like they always run the ball. Very rarely do they throw the ball. But when you're seeing Ritter throw the ball, he's throwing it, but he's just not throwing it to the guys in the right jerseys. And when that happens, it ruins the momentum of this team. It's my opinion that they should move to Heineke right now. It may be a few more struggle bus games, under Ritter before that happens, but I really think they need to move to Heineke. I think he gives them a much better chance to win, and I think he knows how to rally guys around him. The guy always hangs it out there. Don't forget, like he ended up beating Tampa Bay when they had Tom Brady, or pretty close to it, I believe. Anyhow, it was competitive. He knows how to be able to lead guys, and I really think he's a better quarterback than Desmond Ritter. I really don't know how Ritter's the starter there right now. With Tampa Bay, listen, I was kind of shocked they rolled over against Detroit. Detroit just mauls teams, right? Like Tampa Bay has played tougher this season, but it really just seemed like they came out flat against Detroit, and it was kind of sad. They couldn't run the ball. They had trouble throwing it. They just got completely outplayed and outcoached by that team. And I expect this week Tampa Bay to bounce back and at least have a better game from Baker. I don't know if they're really going to blow the doors off this game. I don't see that happening, but they likely won't be able to run against Atlanta. They're going to need Baker to be able to rely on his playmakers, and I'm talking about Godwin and Evans, right? Um, I think Tampa Bay can hang in this game, and I really think Tampa Bay is going to capitalize off of the Desmond Ritter turnovers. That's my thought process on this. The game outlook, I've got Tampa Bay winning 21-17. In terms of fantasy, listen, Bijan Robinson's a must start. Drake London, listen, you have to start him, especially after his game last week. He finally had a good game this season. Kyle Pitts, listen, I'm still out on him until I see something better from him. Yeah, I know he had a touchdown in America last week. I'm not blind to that, but Jonnu Smith has been the tight end on this team. Until I see something different where they're actually favoring Pitts more, I'm not gonna go with him. And listen, Godwin and Evans, they should be in your lineup every week. I mean, we were concerned about them at the beginning of the season, but now they really need to be in your lineup every game. Okay. All right, let's move on here. We got Detroit at Baltimore. So with these, listen, look, I like what I've been seeing from Goff. In fact, I really love it. I love all the people that are coming down on him and saying he's terrible and all of this. He's not a quarterback that can win the big game. Listen, the guy has been to the Super Bowl before. I know people say like, okay, it doesn't matter if you go to the Super Bowl, but like all that matters is if you win it. But this team, he knows how to be able to provide a steadiness for this team that they have not had in the past. I said it on my podcast earlier this week. Listen, he can make any throw on the field. Doesn't matter what it is, hitch route, go route, across the middle, slant, anything. He's even throwing screens too. Listen, this guy can do it all. Every single throw this guy can make. I watched the way he was able to play last week with Jamison Williams, and they really utilized him pretty well. Now that he's back and healthy, back from the suspension, listen, he made a spectacular 45-yard touchdown catch last week. I don't know if you saw it. If you haven't, do yourself a favor and go and check it out. It was amazing. And listen, Amon Ra's been doing great things for him as well. He's obviously Goff's most trusted target. He's, and this guy has been the most consistent receiver in the NFL for the past 1.5 seasons. Like, I show me a receiver in the NFL that has consistently week in and week out had 7 to 9 targets and produced off of those targets. This guy's been an absolute stud for this team, and he's part of the engine that makes this team go. Goff is getting a lot out of his rookie tight end Laporta, and really it's awesome to see. Listen, I know they're going to be missing Montgomery with him out with a few weeks and stuff, but Jameer Gibbs, I believe he's going to be playing. He's active today. And this offensive line's full of maulers, right? Like they just absolutely beat the piss out of teams. I love watching them play. Frank Ragnow up front, he's just an absolute stud. And I know not a lot of people are expecting them to be better than San Francisco or Philly, but there's definitely a path where Detroit ends up with the number one seed in the NFC. And I know people don't want to hear that, but they're playing in the right division to be able to do it. They don't have to play against teams like the Giants, the Commanders, the Cowboys twice a season. They don't have to play against Seattle or the Rams or Arizona twice a season. Like the teams that they're playing against are not great. Minnesota's in shambles. Chicago's terrible. Green Bay still can't figure out what they're doing. I would love that schedule. I really would. And I think Detroit has the path, the cleanest path, I think, to the number one seed. In this particular game, both these teams run the ball very well, and they both play good defense, but they do it in slightly different ways. Detroit, they're really good at defending the run, whereas Baltimore's really good at defending the pass. So I expect Detroit to try to run the ball effectively against them and milk the clock and set up that play action. Listen, Jared Goff's still going to be able to exploit this secondary. I think he's going to do a good job of that. They have enough playmakers on this offense to be able to do that. My concerns, though, as I look at Baltimore, okay, so they're probably not going to be able to run the ball that well against Detroit because Detroit's very good at stopping the run. But I just don't know if they have enough in the passing game to be able to compete. Yeah, they've got Zay Flowers, they've got Mark Andrews, both great players for them, but I don't know. The way I see right now, like it does not look good. OBJ was a waste of 15 million, and I hate to say that because I used to be an OBJ fan, but dude, like there's a reason that you have incentives built into the contract. I would much rather would have seen them go and guarantee 18 million to DeAndre Hopkins, who would still be there, still be healthy, and scoring at least 5 or 6 touchdowns by this point in the season. And he would have given Lamar a good solid target that he can go to on third down when he's scrambling around. I just I don't know. For me, it feels like it was a bad business move for Baltimore bringing in OBJ. Um, it just I don't know. Let's see how it ends up. But for this game, I have and you'll probably realize from earlier in the week during my stream, I already gave my prediction for this, but I've got Detroit beating Baltimore 24-21. In terms of fantasy, listen, Jared Goff, I'd play him. It's going to be tough finding a better quarterback week in and week out off the waiver wire to play this week, especially during the bye week. Amon Ra, every week starter. Jameson Williams, you're likely not. It's not your number one wide receiver, but I definitely would play him this week, especially as things start to heat up with his production, and he could turn into a very very good receiver. I see a path for him to finish as an overall 20 wide receiver by the end of the season. So which puts him right, in wide receiver 2 category. So Sam Laporta, listen, he's a weekly starter for you. He's been an absolute stud. Guy's a G. Jameer Gibbs, absolutely, especially with Montgomery out, you have to play Gibbs. And I don't know if you guys just realized that, but I just listed 5 Lions. Yes, again, let me say that again. 5 Detroit Lions that should be in your fantasy lineups this week. So I don't know what world this is, but it definitely isn't the what we've been used to in the past. So in terms of the Ravens, listen, Lamar's a must start. Zay Flowers, you should be starting him too. Mark Andrews, if you drafted him, you're starting him no matter what. No matter what. All right, let's move on here. We've got Pittsburgh at the Rams. So listen, Kyron Williams is going to be out. McVay, there was a lot of talk this week. Darrell Henderson, likely going to be the guy getting the majority of the touches there, but he's going to be splitting some carries there. Williams is going to be out a few weeks. Listen, so fantasy managers need to pivot. That's what's going to end up happening. Listen, sometimes guys get banged up, they get hurt. I expected that with Kyron Williams, not because I wanted to see him hurt, but just because, listen, the guy's a small back. He's doing a lot. He's doing a lot for this team. When you take that much punishment, you're going to get beat up. So hoping he's able to make it back on the field soon. And I know some of my buddies who have him in fantasy, they're hoping the same thing. So I expect Matt Stafford to do Stafford things, right? Like now that he's got Cup back, it feels like they're getting into a groove. And I really expect them to use the pass a lot to beat this Steelers team. Listen, Cup, Nakua, they're going to be crushing it. And I know Nakua was a little disappointing for people last week because he didn't get that touchdown, but he was very close to getting that. I think he dropped the touchdown pass or came close. Maybe he didn't drop it, but it was real close. So, and if he hauls in that touchdown pass, fantasy managers aren't even complaining. He's going to be fine. Stop having those knee-jerk reactions. Like he's going to be fine. In terms of this game, I'll give you a little prediction. I think Cooper Kupp's going to get 2 touchdowns, so be on the lookout for that. Pittsburgh, listen, good luck protecting Kenny Pickett from Aaron Donald. I mean, Aaron Donald's an absolute beast. He's a stud. With this team right now, the biggest issue for the Steelers that I see is they're giving up 110 more yards than they're producing. And listen, I know the chance have started for Matt Canada. He's just not that dude. They really needed to go after a guy like Kellen Moore. They didn't. Mike Tomlin said changes were coming. They haven't. Maybe they have, and we just haven't seen them. But listen, Freiermuth just hit IR. Deontay Johnson was just activated. Like, I'm not sure I'm buying he's 100% active yet, but this Steelers team really has a lot of good pieces. I just think right now they're really struggling. And, Najee Harris has had glimpses where he's looked really good, but he's a hard fade for me right now. Except where I absolutely need to play him in one of my leagues this week, he's a fade. And listen, Warren doesn't look much better, but is likely the better of the 2 options. If you're sitting there trying to choose between Harris and Warren, I'm probably leaning Warren, though I think stuck in their ways, they're still going to try to milk Harris for what they can get out of him. So, listen, Pickens might be the only Steeler I would play this week. Obviously, you're starting Matt Stafford if you've got him. Nakua, Cup, definitely have to play them. I don't really see anyone else. Tyler Higbee, if you're desperate in a deep league, but he hasn't been great. None of the Steelers, really. I mean, I know I said Najee Harris or Warren if you've got him, but listen, that's only in desperation. For this game, I see the Rams winning 28-14. All right, let's move on here. A few more to get through, guys. We've got Arizona and Seattle. And listen, news just broke that Arizona's not as concerned with Kyler Murray and possibly getting injured. They're going to bring him back. So I'm really excited to be able to see that. Let's see exactly what he looks like. And like I mentioned earlier, I hope a team like Atlanta goes after him because I really think he could be very good in Atlanta. I think he suits that offense very well. And I think the playmakers that they have in Atlanta don't make him as vulnerable. Having a guy like Kyle Pitts that he can get the ball to, Drake London, Bijan Robinson out of the backfield, Tyler Algier, when you run the ball very well, Kyler Murray, it opens up the whole playbook for him. So I think it's a perfect fit, and I can't believe I don't hear other people on ESPN talking about it. Like I really think he would be fantastic in Atlanta, and I think Atlanta would welcome him in with open arms. Um, Now, listen, the Cardinals, they're riding a 3-game losing streak since beating Dallas. And listen, they're giving up 133 yards on the ground. It's not good. They're going against a team that loves to run the ball. And listen, Seattle has been doing very well running the ball. I wouldn't say they're the best team in the league, but listen, they know how to run the ball, and they're going to stick to that game script. Dobbs has quietly been better than Geno Smith this season. I know a lot of people don't really want to admit that, but do yourself a favor, look at the stats. He's been fairly efficient. Listen, he just needs to get Marquise Brown going early in the game. There was rumors of Marquise Brown possibly getting traded, but they came out and kind of debunked those rumors pretty quickly on that. But this team, listen, they're going to be missing James Conner for a few more weeks. It's going to be rough. He just brings a physicality to running the football that they just don't get from Ingram or DeMarcado. Like Connor is that guy, and it it doesn't pain me to say it. Like last year, I was offered a trade halfway through the fantasy football season, and I didn't take it. Where I could have had Connor on my team, and it really ticked me off that I didn't jump on that because it was Connor straight up for Njoku, and I was like, nah, I want Aaron Jones for Njoku instead, and that trade got turned down, and Connor went off the rest of the season, and it might have ended up winning me the championship if I had done it. It's too painful for me to go back and actually look at the numbers and find that out because it would be crushing if that actually was the case. But it would have been close enough that it would have put me in contention. But listen, this game in particular, Seattle, they're getting 9.5, and I mean I think that's that's not even generous enough. It's maybe a bit of an understatement. Listen, they're coming off their bye week and the Cincinnati loss. I think that humbled them a little bit, but they should have rested up a bunch of banged up players that they had. Um, don't forget too. I know some teams seem to really like the early bye, but I think it actually works against you because it's an 18-game season that we have now. I think the sweet spot to be able to get that bye is right around like week 9, week 10, and you're seeing a lot of them obviously happening last week and this week. It seems like a lot of teams are going to be on bye. It's just, I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I'd rather they start this as the first week or maybe week 8, just because it gives those teams a bit of a rest at that point, and you're almost halfway through. Um, Listen, Ken Walker has been the MVP for this team so far this season. Like his ability to be able to punch it in the end zone has helped them immensely. He should have a monster day in fantasy. I can't think of a running back right now that's set to have a bigger day today than Ken Walker. Like I really think he should absolutely crush it against this Arizona team. They just need Geno Smith to be better with the football. Like I had big expectations for this offense, and Metcalf and Lockett and JSN. Like they've been fairly disappointing so far. Like JSN just really hasn't come into his own yet. Metcalf just hasn't been that dude this year, and you're seeing him getting careless penalties. Listen, it's not my it doesn't matter what my opinion is on it, whether he made a dirty play or not. My whole thing of it is like I want to see him be able to catch the ball and bring it into the end zone. That's what I care about. And if you're hurting your team, you're screwing them. Like, don't do that. So hey guys, I didn't see you there. Oh, welcome Bash, welcome Bumpy. Glad you guys hopped in. No, listen, don't be sorry. I appreciate it. I know. Listen, people got busy stuff. They got lives and stuff. I appreciate you guys jumping in. Um, listen, we're gonna wrap up this game real quick. We got a few more to go through. So listen, I think there's going to be a big return on this defense for them with Jamal Adams coming back. The defense matchup I'm looking at though in this particular game is Witherspoon on Marquise Brown. Like Witherspoon did pretty well against Jamar Chase on the routes that he covered him. Listen, he's not a follow this guy all over the field type guy, but he did pretty well against Chase when he had the opportunity, and I'm wondering if he's going to do the same against Brown. Listen, like I said before, I expect Seattle to run the ball really well and blow this wide open. I have Seattle winning this 31-14. In terms of fantasy guys that I'd be starting, I'm a little bit in a hold position right now on Geno Smith unless I have to play him. Uh, Ken Walker, absolutely. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, they should be in your lineups every single week, just because their ability to pop off it's great. In terms of Arizona, I think Marquise Brown and maybe in a very deep league, you could argue Michael Wilson, but I just don't see this team having a great day against Seattle. Maybe Keontae Ingram if you're brave and you got steel balls, but I would I'd hold on that a little bit until I saw more out of them. All right. So moving on here, we got Green Bay at Denver. Listen, both Russ and Jordan Love started off playing really well this year, but they both cooled off. And listen, Denver has been a hot topic for trade targets, specifically Jerry Judy. It's just been. Thank you, Vash. I appreciate that. I can't comment on that, but oh man, um, is that better for you? All right. So, listen, for both of them, Judy's been the topic for trade targets this year. I think this roster needs a massive revamp. You had Ryan Clark come out earlier in the week on ESPN and say, like, even Russell Wilson has to go on this team. I just, I don't know. I think of him as Hollywood Russell. I just, he he has games where he's played well, and I don't think he's as bad as people are saying. Their offense has played much better this year, but their defense can't stop anybody. And I think that's unfair to grade Russell so harshly on that. Now, the stupid turnovers, listen, that's awful to see. It really is. But I just don't put it all on him. I just don't. And they are not in a position financially where they can really move on from him. That's a huge hit on their cap if they decide to cut him. They owe him a ton of money. So they better figure out a way to make things work with him. And Sean Payton, I don't know. Like maybe he bit off more than he can chew. Maybe he was too cocky. Maybe that's what it was. But if they're going to completely revamp this team, I think they need to keep Patrick Surtain and trade and cut everybody else. Start over. Start from scratch. Listen, he's the one piece you need to keep. Everyone else is dispensable. Uh, Russell's the only guy that I would even consider at that point. Even maybe Javante Williams too. But listen, the rest of the guys on this team, start over fresh. I would draft a rookie QB, and maybe sign a veteran quarterback to a deal and try to start over on this. But oh boy, there we go. Yeah, you got to focus on meta stats and meta pieces. Yeah, you definitely need that. So, like, if we were to talk about that, like, we would probably keep John and we'd cut me from the team. And then we'd have to fill in from there. We got to do that. So, yeah, sometimes you got to cut and then come back from there. So, oh, Big Peppy, thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for hopping in. Yeah, you're catching us at a good time. We're talking about Green Bay and Denver. Um, but listen, I just in regards to Sean Payton, I just want to come back to him real quick. Like this scenario that we've created with him, it's just not working out right now. I think you need to give him time. He's been successful in the past. There's rumors of possibly Rex Ryan going there next year, and I love the sound of that. Like if you bring Rex in, I don't. I don't play football. I can't play football because I'm too old to do that now. But if Rex Ryan goes to Denver, I will sign up. I would love to play for that guy. I love the way how inspiring he is, and I could get behind a guy like that. And I think that's what they need on that team. He's going to bring guys in that are going to play the game of football very well on defense. He has nothing to do with the offense, but if you bring him in as a defensive coordinator, he could be an absolute like stud, and he's going to put together a serious unit for you. So, oh, nice, headed to the casino. Yeah, there you go. Good luck, man. Good luck. All right, so let's move on here real quick. So Green Bay's another team people were expecting more out of, and listen, I think that may be unfair. You've got it's the first year for Jordan Love, but he's going to have some hiccups and bumps. You got to give him a little bit of time. He's been without his starting running back in Aaron Jones, and that just hasn't been good for him at all. He's likely Aaron Jones will likely be back this week, and he was without Watson for a few weeks too, which, believe it or not, I think actually bode pretty well for him because he was able to develop a little bit of rapport with Dobbs, Jaden Reed, and also Luke Musgrave. Now I know Musgrave got a little banged up and stuff, but that guy's a talent. The more they incorporate him in the offense, the better it's going to be. And I don't think he's a guy that needs 10 targets a game to produce. Throw the ball his way 5-6 times, and I think you're going to see some good production out of him. Jaden Reed can absolutely be a stud on this team. And I think if you're running him out of the slot with Dobbs and Watson on the side and Aaron Jones out of the back, this is definitely a much better team than they put forward so far. So I expect Green Bay in this game to try to run the ball, even though they've sucked at it this year. Listen, you've got to do it. You have to. Denver is just they're one of the worst defenses in the league. You have to try to run the ball to open up the pass. And I think this could be a really high scoring affair. I have Green Bay winning this 34-21. All right, let's see. Ooh, let me just catch up on this. Okay. Sounds like a Zach day. Go Peppy. Sorry. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Good luck. Okay, yeah, food show tomorrow. Oh man, okay. All right. Well, good luck at that. Yeah. Definitely get that paper, man. Good luck at the food show tomorrow, man. All right. So next game that we've got here. Actually, let me just go back real quick on that. So Green Bay in Denver, because I want to make sure that I do a fantasy outlook on this. With Green Bay, I would definitely be starting Aaron Jones if he's playing because he's too talented not to. Christian Watson, you got to play him. Romeo Dobbs in deeper leagues. Jaden Reed in deeper leagues. Luke Musgrave in deeper leagues. In terms of Denver, Jerry Jeudy, and the reason I'm going to say this is you have to play Jerry Jeudy because they're likely going to try to shop him in a trade. They're going to try to feed him the ball this week. I don't know if you guys caught that on camera with him dancing behind Steve Smith last week. I saw the best line on Twitter about that he had more yards run dancing behind Steve Smith on TV the other day than he's had all season, which was kind of funny. But they're going to try to get rid of this guy. Cortland Sutton, you got to play him. McLaughlin, Jaleel McLaughlin, I think that's his name. You got to play him too. I mean, they're going to try to run the ball. Even Russell, I feel like Russell could have a good game against Green Bay. Don't sleep on him. His stats haven't been awful. He's been decent for fantasy this year, and I believe he's a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. So, I would definitely ride him given the chance. All right, now we're going to move on. We got the Chargers at Kansas City. Let's see if we got any. All right. Laughlin. Yeah, I appreciate it, Vash. All right, so we got the Chargers at Kansas City. Listen, it's the big showdown at 4 p.m. today on Sunday. Kansas City, listen, they've turned things around quite a bit on offense. They're still not great, but they're doing better. And listen, we're starting to see the emergence of Rashee Rice. I think it's very possible for him to become the number one wide receiver on this team, and I don't think he's got a lot of competition in terms of that. Travis Kelce, listen, he's still the top target getter here. Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. Him and Pat, they have their rapport, and I think they could do it in their sleep. So we still haven't seen them putting up big points. I really would like to see that, but maybe this team just isn't built that way. There's big concern around that too because I know they said like, oh, okay, they won the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill, but they did get quite a bit of production out of the receivers. And this year they just haven't been able to do that. Um, the difference with this team in terms of Kansas City is they're actually a good team defensively. You know, they've rattled off 5 wins in a row now since losing on opening night to Detroit. But don't forget, when they lost that game opening night, they didn't have Kelsey, they didn't have Chris Jones. You know, Chris Jones is the driving force on this defense, and they're a team that no one wants to play. No one gets up on Sunday and says, "Oh yes, we got the Chiefs today. This is going to be fun." No team wants to play an Andy Reid team. No team wants to play against Travis Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones. Those are guys no one wants to play against. So I really think, the biggest thing for me and the only cause for concern that I have in terms of Kansas City is the penalties. Listen, they've committed 17 over the last 2 weeks. It's just not good at all. They need to clean that up. And I'm fairly certain, listen, Andy Reid is very smart. He's going to have them clean that up. So I really think they're able to do that in this game. Listen, the Chargers, again, it's just a depressing story for the Chargers, man. Like they lose another crushing game to Dallas right at the end with Herbert throwing the pick. But I really felt like they shouldn't have even been in that position in the first place. Like I don't know, this team week in and week out, I feel like they're the most talented team in the NFL that just doesn't get it done every week. I know Joey Bosa's nursing an injury. I get that piece. Like I know they lost Mike Williams for the year, but the amount of talent on this team and how they're playing is just it's terrible. Like this is a team that we thought this year was going to be the team to kind of knock off Kansas City. Maybe they come out strong this game, but I just think I don't want to see the window close for Justin Herbert. I really like watching him play. I think he's an awesome guy to watch. I had him as a possible MVP candidate this year, and he was one of my guys. And like, they just have not played well this year. He's not making the best throws, but I've seen games that he's relied on Keenan Allen. He's played very very well with him. Quentin Johnston just hasn't been the guy that we were kind of hoping he would be. Um, and I've said it before. I'll say it again. Brandon Staley needs to be out. Like, let Kellen Moore take over, please. Like, I just Kellen Moore is the guy that knows how to be able to do it. So, yeah, yeah. Poor poor Chargers. Yeah, yeah. They're a little rough. So, listen, the Chargers haven't run the ball particularly well this year. Especially not the last 2 games. They've had to rely a lot on the pass. Now, part of that is the teams they played, right? Like going up against Dallas, who's got a good defense, especially a good run defense. It's going to be very difficult to do that. But I just in this game, I expect the Chargers to throw early and throw often. I'm hoping the offensive line can keep Kansas City off of Herbert's back, but I don't know. Like we're gonna see. Like Chris Jones is coming. He's coming for you, man. Like I just think a betting man would put money on the fact that. Well, I say the fact. A betting man would predict that Staley's going to go for it on 4th and 1 from his own 30 and lose the game by a field goal. So that's exactly what I'm picking. I'm picking Kansas City to win this game 28-27. And in terms of fantasy outlook, I've got obviously Mahomes, Kelsey, Rasheed Rice. You're starting them. I think you have to. On Pacheco, like I don't know. Like I think you kind of have to play him. I don't feel good playing him, and I just don't think he's built for a big workload. I see him much more as like a Jameer Gibbs type back, where I think Jameer Gibbs can handle like a heavier workload, but I just think Pacheco's like great when he gets like 14 carries or like 14 opportunities a game, not when he's getting 20 plus. All right, let's move on here. He's coming. He's coming. He's coming. Yeah, he could be Washington in disguise. So, all right. So we've got the Dolphins here, and we've got the Eagles. Now this is going to be the game that everyone really wants to watch this week. The one that everyone's got their eyes on. Like this is the Sunday night football game we've all been waiting for. I'm tired of watching Dallas on Sunday night. Like this is exactly what we want. Two absolute powerhouse football teams. They're both 5-1. Miami's coming off the great win against Carolina, where they were down 14-0 and then rattled off 35 points right away. And then Philly coming off that stunning loss against the Jets, which did not feel well. But like let me just say it, and I mentioned it before on the podcast earlier this week. Mike McDaniels, not only is he must watch TV, but he's making this team must watch TV. Like, he might be the most interesting coach in the NFL. Like, he's just so dynamic in terms of his play calling, and he's really championed Tua. And I think that's so important for a coach to truly believe in their guy. Like, when you hear clips of him mic'd up on the sideline, and this isn't just last year that I'm talking about, you're hearing it this year as well. He really believes in this guy and has a strong, unwavering belief in him. And I think that's a great thing. Like, listen, there's so many good things I can say about like Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, Mostert. Like, but I don't really need to say them. We all know those things. My big matchup that I'm kind of looking for is Tyreek versus Slay on this. And like personally, I don't think it's a matchup. The only reason I bring it up is because my buddy thought it was going to be a good one. But I think Tyreek torches him just like he's torched everyone else this year. I would be shocked in this game if we don't see like another 150-yard performance out of Tyreek Hill. Conversely, I also see AJ Brown getting at least 150 yards this week because I think Philly's going to have to throw the ball in order to be able to keep up with this Miami team. Now, one cool thing that I saw this week was Jalen Ramsey was practicing, so it could be good signs for this Miami team. I didn't see whether he's going to suit up or not this week, but it is good that he's back practicing. And anytime we get Jalen Ramsey back, I'm welcoming that sight. So in terms of Philly, and I know I mentioned that about AJ Brown, but listen, I think Jalen Hurts rebounds back this week. He had a 3 interception performance last week. That's very uncharacteristic. He does not do that often, and he did that, mind you, against the Jets team that was down their top 2 corners. Sauce Gardner, who knows? It could have been 5 interceptions if he was there. I say that, but listen, like Jalen Hurts is a good decision maker. He got rattled last week. They got pressure on him, and that's kind of my concern in this game. Like, I don't know if Miami has enough to get enough pressure on him, but we're definitely going to find out, as we go through this. So, I see Miami giving up a lot of Happy Gilmore football coach. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely, man. So on this, listen, Miami's defense is giving up a lot of yards on the ground and a good chunk through the air. Like, this is a defense that can play very um, risky. And when they do that, they sometimes give up touchdowns when they don't need to. They do this, of course, because their offense can just score in bunches. But I would really like to see Miami tighten things up a bit because I think they're going to have to come later in the season. When they play a team like Kansas City, who does have a good defense, I think if they shut down Miami's offense, well, I'm not confident that the Miami defense can stop Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, even with as it looks like as limpy as they're playing. So I don't know. We're going to see. Listen, this is going to be a high scoring affair. I have Philly winning this 28-24. And in terms of fantasy, like, listen, if you have a Dolphins player on your roster, you're starting him. I don't need to get into that. If you have an Eagles player on your roster, you're starting him. Even if it's Goddard, you're playing him, right? Like, I don't even want to get into it because it's like you have to be starting those guys. So, yeah, listen, Bumpy, I can't believe they lost to the Jets either, but you need losses like that. You have to have stuff like that because it builds confidence. You got to overcome adversity, and you need to be humbled sometimes. Sometimes you got to get kicked in the nuts to get back up again. So, all right, let's move on here. Last game that we've got here before, and then I'll kick you guys off for the 1 o'clock games here. Listen, we've got San Francisco at Minnesota. This game, listen, San Francisco's coming off that devastating loss to Cleveland, and they just, I think the big thing was they incurred a lot of injuries that game. Like, I know CMC, Trent Williams, they're both listed as questionable, but it looks like McCaffrey's trending towards being active Monday night. Brock Purdy, listen, it's going to be interesting to see how he responds. He's still one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL. I expect him to right the ship this week. I know a lot of people want to cast doubt on him and blame and all this stuff. Like, get over yourself. Like, the guy's doing something you couldn't do, and that's why you're sitting on your couch. So stop being an internet tough guy and sit there in your recliner and lean back a bit. in regards to what they plan on doing, I expect a heavy dose out of Kittle and Ayuk this week, unless McCaffrey's there. Listen, if McCaffrey's there, they're going to lean on him, and you have to against this Minnesota team. I definitely see with Debo out, they're going to have to use Kittle and Ayuk more. So I expect more of that. Listen, Cousins, he's trying to do what he can, um, especially against this defense. Like, good luck, man. Good luck. Like, he's down his best receiver, a guy that gives him solidly like 120 to 150 yards a game. Um, I don't know. I feel like this team's set to implode, and that's scary. Madison could have a really rough day running the ball against San Francisco. I hope, and this is for me personally because I have Addison. I hope Addison, Hawkinson, and Osborne are able to step it up, but they're going to have to if they're going to stand a chance. Maybe there's an off chance, a very small chance, where San Francisco still doesn't play well and Minnesota is able to get a win on them, but I just don't know. I don't see that. This defense that they have is so good. Nick Bosa is just he's an absolute monster. And Fred Warner is one of the scariest players in the NFL. Like I do not want to go up against that guy ever. Ever. And I don't think any of these offenses want to either. Um, just like on defense, Minnesota's going to have to get pressure on Purdy. This offense is just they're tough to stop, right? Like they're easier to stop without Debo there, and if McCaffrey's not there, it's even easier. But listen, they're going to have to do what they can to try to hang in there and keep this game close. I have San Francisco winning this one 21-10. And in terms of fantasy outlook, listen, Brock Purdy, I'm starting him this week due to bye weeks because we got 6 teams out. CMC, he's a must start. Listen, you don't question yourself. If he's active, you're starting him. Again, Purdy, Ayuk, Kittle. I know Kittle's been rough the last few weeks, but he should have a bounce back this week. And Debo, he's going to be out. I would be cautious and careful if you are starting Kirk Cousins. It could be a very bad day for him. It might be a better day for the receivers on the team, like Addison and Hawkinson and maybe Osborne. Madison, I I have a hard time wanting to start him against this San Francisco front. Like they're really tough. So I would be very careful doing that. All right, let's see here. All right. So, listen, guys, here's my info. Listen, if you like the content today, definitely let me know. You can follow me on Twitter at Willie Creamin FF. Here I am on Twitch, but also I'm running the Pulse podcast on YouTube, starring my buddy Al and I. So, if you need that, the link's right below in my profile. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining this week. I really appreciate it. I had a ton of fun, and I love you guys. So, yeah. Listen, I appreciate that. I'm not quite a Chad, but I'm getting there. So a few more weeks and I might be one. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Bumpy, good luck at the food show. I'm sorry, Big Peppy Nips, good luck at the food show. Bumpy, I appreciate the support. Bash, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, boys. Have a great night.